welcome back to another episode. As you can maybe see down in the title, we are talking about Halo. Halo as a series is one I've got a very long history with. Kind of my first major console game I owned myself. Certainly my first shooter. Now, my first console was the GameCube, but my first one that I owned myself was the original Xbox. To the point where I now own 4 of them. I bought this crystal one recently from a shop in town. And I figured today would be a good day to talk about Halo and my experience with it. So, just a cheap plastic energy sword. And the weird way elites and humans have to hold it in the games. Anyway, my experience with Halo started quite young. My mother had a friend whose eldest had an Xbox. Not too dissimilar from this one, if I recall correctly. But on that, he had Halo 1 Combat Evolved. And the very first level of Halo I ever played was the Silent Cartographer, which, to be honest, still remains one of my favourite Halo levels of all time. Bloody love that level. Really iconic. Swooping in the Pelicans, gunning down an entire beach full of the alien Covenant, and just absolutely slaughtering them. So much fun with that beautiful, beautiful Magnum and that very, very good assault rifle. But I didn't have an original Xbox by this point. It took me a couple of years, actually. It took me a couple of years to kind of convince my parents to be like, maybe an Xbox original. But before that, I had the PC version of Halo. Now, I didn't play online with this at all. There was no online multiplayer for me with the... This is my original copy, actually, now I think about it. Wow, very old. But I used to boot this up on my father's laptop very far back in the day and play it on there. I'm not a big PC gamer, as you may know, but my earliest memory of Halo is, under my ownership, was this ratty-ass PC copy. And you know what, this had a few extra modes. I never really got beyond... I want to say I never really got beyond Silent Cartographer, to be perfectly honest with you. Very, very bad at Halo. Back then. Very bad. But then, roll on, Christmas 2005, I believe. Very late. Very late in the original Xbox's lifespan, I got one. And I got the Halo triple pack. I ended up getting rid of the box, unfortunately, but this was shortly after I'd been into curries, and I discovered the existence of Halo 2. But we roll round to that Christmas. I'm excited. I don't know what I'm getting. I open up my first game for it, which was... Well, it was it was either Sonic Heroes or Star Wars Republic Commando. I believe it was Sonic Heroes, which was extraordinarily cool. But then I found the Halo triple pack, and that is exactly what got me off my ass and really got obsessed with Halo. To the point where I've got a fair number of copies of the original ones on the original Xbox. So we've got the kind of original release. That's not the one that came with the triple pack, of all things. It was actually this one, I believe. It was that one, which, why? Give us that. I bought this like years later for £1. And just another one. Because I wanted to own all the classic versions of Halo. I even found a not for resale one in a charity shop for like £1, and I don't really know what this is. I'm going out on a limb and just saying it might be a review copy, which would be really cool. I've got a couple of those. I've got one for for Brutal Legend, if you recall from my Brutal Legend video. But Halo 1 was never my favourite. It's certainly got my favourite weapons out of every Halo game. And I know, Brute Shot's amazing, Gravity Hammer's amazing, Energy Sword's amazing, blah blah blah. But Halo 1's Magnum, and Halo 1's Assault Rifle, and Halo 1's Shotgun, and Halo 1's Plasma Pistol, actually, nothing ever came close to how that felt. Halo 1 felt like Doom dying and kind of reinventing the wheel. But in a good way. It introduced the 2 weapon limit into video games that kind of stuck around for a very long time. Nowadays you don't see that as much, which is fine. I get why it was in there. But then we got onto my favourite Halo game out of all of them. And I've got every Halo game. There are a lot to go through, but when I own 6 copies of Halo 2, which I didn't quite realise how many... Oh no, that's not Halo 2. 5 copies of Halo 2. Yeah. You know I like that one the most. I have a story of playing this with my wife a couple months ago. We were playing through Halo 2, specifically the multiplayer. Played a tad bit of the multiplayer, and I killed her so many times she now objectively refuses to play this game with me. Which I think I've told that story in my top 10 games video. Go watch that if you want to know more. But it was very funny. And now she hates playing games with me. Because, yeah, still play Bomberman with her though, so whatever. Anyway, yeah. I love Halo 2. It was kind of a big part of... It probably was the single biggest part of my childhood, trying to beat that game. I've played it for hundreds of thousands of hours. I've watched the stuff on here, on the Halo 2 multi-map pack, so many times, from the behind-the-scenes documentary to Another Day at the Beach, which they did remake for the Halo 2 anniversary, but it doesn't quite have the in-game jank that I like so much from this. I used to just crank this in just to watch it. There's no point keeping this once you've got it, but to the point where I did actually sell it once upon a time, which was very stupid. I sold the multi-map pack and then I went, I was dumb. So I went straight back to the shop and bought it. Got my money back, got the bloody thing back, because stupid. I have tried Halo 2 Vista. I'm sure there's people out there who would say, "Ooh, that's the best way to play it, what with its bonus map editor and exclusive content and la-di-da-di-donkey-doo," but it's not the best way to play Halo 2. The best way was the original Xbox, playing it online multiplayer. Never really got the chance, unfortunately. I'm still very good at that multiplayer though, as a lot of my salty friends will tell you. But yeah, this bit's kind of cool. The Halo 2 companion DVD set. Not a clue what this is, to be honest with you. Picked it up just because it had a Halo 2 trailer, some interviews, which is pretty sick, desktop themes, storyboards, outtakes and bloopers. Mostly bought it because it had a brute force hint book. I'm probably going to be doing a top 10 Xbox games in the next couple of months, so stick around for that. I think you'll enjoy it. There's also a few good videos on the original Xbox by Dat Game Collector, or DGC, who I watch when he uploads. Wish he'd do it more, but I things get in the way. Yeah, this was a cool find. It was like £3 in a game shop, and I was like, might do that. Thing is, Halo multiplayer for me, Halo in general for me, didn't quite explode until I got my 360. And I think that can be safely said for the vast majority of people. And I think it all really started with why I got a 360 in the first place. Halo 3. Halo 3 is really the peak of the series for me. Really is the peak of the series. One of the best campaigns. outside of Cortana, which is terrible. Awful level, dreadful. Don't know what Bungie were thinking. First introduction of Forge. I would argue this had the best campaign, and it's for co-op play. Halo 2's, I'd argue, best campaign overall. Playing as the Arbiter is very cool. However, there's a few dud levels. Unfortunately, they are Flood ones. And Flood ones are just awful. Playing Flood levels is so miserable. As anyone who has played the library in Halo 1 would know. But Halo's really important. And Halo 3's genuinely very good 4-player local as well. 4-player local multiplayer. Multiplayer co-op. 4-player local multiplayer co-op. So many games back then had 4-player local multiplayer co-op. Don't get that anymore. That was dropped from pretty much every major release that 343 did. I think even Halo 4. No, Halo 4 had the local multiplayer. And the local co-op. Even had System Link. First game to have System Link. That I did end up using on the 360. I know the first two had System Link, obviously. But this was the first one I ever actually tried. Dragged it around a friend's house when I first got this back in 2007. While I was kind of living in the same hometown as everyone in high school. Or secondary school, if you're English, which I am. And played this, and it was beautiful. The Halo peaked with a lot of the Halo 3 content. It's not my favourite Halo game of the 360 era. We'll get to that one. But probably one of the final games Bungie did that I respect them for. We'll get to my thoughts on Destiny later, but yeah. These were very good times. Getting a kill streak on Halo's on Halo 3's multiplayer with the shotgun typically can do. Typically quite good. A very good end to the original Halo trilogy. Then we kind of veered into Collector's Edition for Halo 3. Picked it up for like £3 2 years ago. Get it. Good game. Very good game. Although, best way to play most Halo games nowadays, probably Master Chief Collection, if you're on the Xbox Series X or the Xbone. Otherwise, yeah. The originals are cheap. Very cheap. Extraordinarily cheap. Still cheap. Funny story. 2008. Massively into Halo. Overwhelmingly into Halo. Still hugely, overwhelmingly into Halo. I start fantasizing about RTS games. Specifically a Halo one. And this is months before Halo Wars was announced. I wrote up unit descriptions. I wrote up factions and characters. I wrote an entire Forerunner faction and how that would operate in gameplay. Based on the very limited information we had with the Forerunners at the time, before 4 and all the books garnered. I even picked up 3 of the books later on, but again, we'll get to that. This shows up for the first time, which is extraordinarily exciting. Unfortunately, only two factions in it. The Covenant and the UNSC. But it's set in a much earlier time. The last game by Ensemble Studios before they became Robot Entertainment, which don't like them as much, unfortunately. One of the last big RTS studios. But yeah. Really solid game. The only RTS game I've ever actually finished the campaign on. And you know what? Totally worth it. The leader system in particular is very cool. And playing that multiplayer against some of my friends back in the day, very, very good. Followed that up with the Halo Wars Collector's Edition with its pretty cool little tie-in comic called Genesis. And you know what? 3 Halo multiplayer maps. That was weird. That was weird for the time. It was cool, but it was weird. Then we get to my absolute favourite Halo game of that era. Halo ODST. Halo ODST is not a long game. It's like at most 3, maybe 4 hours if you're really pushing it, and if you longer if you're exploring the big map. But atmospherically, it's easily my favourite Halo game in that respect. Not so much story-wise. I think some of it's a bit janky. How it tells its story is also very Memento syndrome. But at the same time... sorry, bit of a cold, a bit ill. At the same time, came with the full multiplayer expansion, which is awesome. Back in the day when they released new maps paid. It introduced Firefight to the series, which 343 then subsequently removed and absolutely annihilated. And you know what? Best music. Best music by a good wide country mile. A good solid country mile. Absolutely love Halo ODST. I think we can all remember Rain or Deference of Darkness. The section on that. That I first heard after beating the Oni level. After beating the Oni level or Oni site, I believe it was called Oni site. Beating that for the first time, coming out of it and just hearing blum blum was a magical moment. A very magical moment. I still think about it. It's music I still listen to whenever I get sad or anxious or just really like, it's been a really heavy day. I just pop that on. It's melancholy as hell, but it's beautiful. It really, really is. Controversial choice now. Halo Reach. Bungie's, I'm going to say it, last good game. And I know that's going to be controversial, in my opinion. Their last good game. Even then, I think it suffered from a few things. Number one, I think the Covenant were a bit too over-designed. I think overhauling the design after so many games was a very bad idea. They got rid of the whole blue elites are the minor ones, reds are the sergeants, golds are the field marshals. I know that's not their rank. I know that's not their rank in canon, but that's just what I'm going with for now. And quite frankly, I think Halo Reach has the worst Bungie campaign. There's just certain parts about it I don't like. But it did prove to me that the Covenant can carry an entire game by themselves. They don't necessarily need the Flood. They don't necessarily need Sentinels. Or Prometheans, which come later. But Halo Reach is good for me in a different respect. This, from the limited edition, big, chunky, unshelfable thing that it is, easily had the single best multiplayer of any Halo game. Any Halo game. I played it so much online, especially custom games. Custom games was beautiful, and the big part of it, Forge. It was Forge. It was Bungie coming along going, you know all those tools that you were using in Halo 3 to make all of those extraordinarily cool maps, especially on stuff like Sandtrap? We've redone them. We've made them better. We have made them so much better. And I know 343 have done something similar with Halo Infinite's Forge recently, but we'll get to that one. We'll get to that game. This one's multiplayer is so infinitely replayable. The armors aren't locked behind a paywall. They're not tighter battle passes or any of that microtransaction shit. They're just unlockable with points. I mean, I still find it very annoying how bloody expensive some of the stuff in the bloody shop is, especially when you're trying to get the robot arm for your Spartan. But here we are. And the fact that you can have 2 robot arms, lame. But my voice on here was my voice on here was Johnson. I love Sergeant Johnson. To the point where when I got Halo ODST, does it still have it in here? It does. It does. It does diddly does. This. When you pre-ordered Halo 3 ODST back in the day, you got Sergeant Johnson in a firefight. I think he's still saved on my original Xbox, which is extraordinarily cool. Give that a go, actually. Should give that a go. Been a while. Not my original Xbox, on my 360. Should give that a go. But Reach's multiplayer kind of brought me and a lot of my friends together. I used to religiously watch Halo Waypoint back when that was up. I used to watch Red vs. Blue. I was so immersed in Halo. Everything was about Halo. Absolutely everything. Then it started. Then my slow disinterest in the franchise began. The slow march towards the end of Halo for me. It kind of started with, well, to be fair, it started with the 2 twin-stick shooters they did, which was Spartan Assault, which is not great. Even as twin-stick shooters go, it's not very good. And Spartan Strike, which was somehow worse by, at the time, only exclusively releasing on PC, which... great, thank you for that. But I initially had high hopes for Halo 4. When Halo 4 was announced, very excited. I was like, ooh, we'll get to see where the UNSC is, where Chief is, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And before that, they'd done Halo Anniversary, which is an extraordinarily interesting remaster. From a technological point of view, they overlaid the new graphics onto the old. So you could instantly switch between pretty much anything on the fly. So you could switch from, say, how it looks really pretty and overly bloomed in, say, the... goodness, what's it called? In the 343 Guilty Spark level, to actually looking like, well, hey, it should. Foggy and grimy and, oh, look, the Flood are actually here and it's not just neon and green and looking like crap. But this did add something interesting. Most people won't remember it. Most won't. But it added a Kinect feature. If you remember the Kinect, which... the Kinect was a basically controlless Wii that was sellotaped onto the 360 towards the tail end of its lifespan and was a miserable frickin' experience. However, the voice controls were actually extraordinarily cool. What this did was allow you to scan certain parts of the environment, certain enemies, certain this, certain that, certain this, that, and that, and you'd learn new lore. Well, maybe not new lore, but certainly old lore. It was like having a kind of walking Halopedia, which is the Halo Wiki online, while you're playing this game, which was very cool. And to be honest, online co-op? No. Yes. I think online co-op. Yes. Online co-op. Online co-op with this. Very cool. Extraordinarily cool. Very cool. Big fan. But how it looks has been subject to some controversy, which I do agree with. So, not maybe the best start for Halo. Then we got Halo 4. Now, I do have 2 copies, just because this is the, air quotes, Game of the Year edition. It doesn't really add anything that I can tell from the back, although, to be fair, all of it's in German or Belgian, so whatever. But yeah. This one's multiplayer in comparison to Reach, awful. This one's Forge in comparison to Halo Reach, awful. This one's characterization of the Chief and Cortana in comparison to every Halo Bungie game, better. in 100 different ways. To the point where this was really what gave me that connection to Chief. I know a lot of people are like, oh, he's just kind of cool and that's all he should be and blah blah. But that's not really what he should be. He's a character. And giving him that personality of, you can kind of tell most of it from just suggestion. His silence when Captain Lasky is talking to him about Cortana speaks volumes, and it's an interesting look into how you take what is a largely voiceless protagonist and turn him into an actual person, albeit one who's closed off and emotionally cut off and increasingly becoming more machine. An arc they did continue to certain degrees, which we will get to. I even think the Prometheans were done fine in this game. The Prometheans are like these new antagonists. Right there. Basically, robot knights kind of introduced in the... Well, not introduced, but certainly elaborated on in the Greg Bear, rest in peace, Forerunner trilogy, which I very heavily got into. Huge fan of these books. I think they're kind of old. My first Halo book was actually Halo the Flood, which is just a complete and utter retelling of this, which is great. It's so much fun. They even used some of the characters from it in the Halo arcade game called Halo Fighting Raven, which takes place throughout Halo 1, but also has a bucket load of supposed battles from the book, which is extraordinarily cool. But Cryptum, Primordium, and Silentium, easily my favourite, detailed the beginnings of the Forerunner Flood War. Basically, the reason the Halo rings exist, if you don't know too much about Halo. These are beautiful. And the Prometheans are largely introduced towards this end one, or at least their reasons for existing. As an antagonist faction, the best way I've found them the best way I found them combat-wise is it's a hunter and his dogs. So crawlers are kind of the grunts, they're fast, can climb on walls, and are dogs. Then you've got the knights, who are kind of the humanoid tanks, i.e. the hunters, kind of like a hunter and elite. It's fused together in an ugly baby. Then you've got watchers, which are, in a strange way, kind of like a hunting bird. And fighting them was interesting. Admittedly, yes, you always target the watcher first, but you have a lot more to contend with there. I know you get more variety out of the Covenant, but they were a nice change of pace. The unfortunate thing is, the villain's not amazing. In context of this book in particular, Halo Silentium, he's a very good antagonist. In the game, he's Darth Vader garbage. He's Darth Vader light, and he's not particularly interesting as a result, which is a shame. But overall, I thought this wasn't a terrible game. Then we got to Halo 5. This was kind of the next step down. Not necessarily for me. I thought Halo 5 was fine. And by fine, I mean, I think its gameplay is probably some of the best in the series. To the point where I find it very difficult to go back and without, certain Halo abilities, like sprinting. I miss sprinting. But I know a lot of people don't like sprinting and blah, 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 blah. But this did several things wrong. Number one, a quarter of the game is spent playing as Master Chief. The rest is spent playing as boring McFuckface Spartan Locke, who... The characters they introduce in this are so incomprehensibly boring that even when they drag in a character from this game to try and liven up the main cast, who you're playing with for the vast majority of the game, they are awful. They are boring, they are one-dimensional, and they suck. Buck, by contrast, who is the character dragged out of this to become a Spartan 4, is a delight, but that's because he has a character. It's not just, oh, we're going to get Cortana, who's now the villain, to prattle off a bunch of crap about these random characters that you're supposed to give a shit about and then never do and then allegedly get killed off in the sequel. That's not good storytelling. And that's because, and I hate that they did this, the original writer of Halo 4 didn't write Halo 5. Instead, they got the guy who wrote War Games. War Games was... oh no, Spartan Ops. Sorry. Spartan Ops was a online-only, slowly updated season of co-op campaign missions. And the story is flat out one of the worst in Halo. Flat out. Flat out one of the worst. Idiot characters, idiot decisions, idiot gameplay, and the man can't write a decent sci-fi story to save his sorry ass. And I will stand by that. I will not harass the guy, I will not tell him to kill himself. But, in terms of writing for Halo, probably the second worst writer you could have picked outside of Karen Travis. And I do stand by that. And I freaking hate Karen Travis. But the fact that they then go, oh, Spartan Ops' story was fucking terrible. Let's give them a whole Halo game to write. Dreadful. The marketing for this was garbage. They were like, oh yeah, Chief is on the run. Why is he on the run? Blah, blah, blah. That is a fraction of the story. And it's boring. And it's stupid. And when this Locke idiot finally catches up to Chief in an attempt to bring him in, Chief kicks his ass in 3 minutes and then it's never mentioned again. It's never mentioned again. When you confront a better character who you used to play as in the form of the Arbiter from Halo 2, Locke comes across as an arrogant douchebag who isn't worthy of standing next to a character of actually decent writing. I'd argue Arbiter had a much better storyline in the original trilogy of Halo games than even Chief did. Chief didn't have a story. He was just the super soldier. Arbiter's story went like this, up and down and all over the god-knob place. So when we bump into that character again, that's one we give a shit about, not Spartan fucking Locke. But, on a campaign-to-campaign mission basis, solid. Fighting on Sanghelios, home planet of the Elite, extraordinarily cool. Fighting against some of those elites on a floating city in the middle of the ocean, extraordinarily cool. Running down a giant Forerunner construct, shooting stuff in the head as you go, is cool. But, set pieces can only get you so far. And I think that's this game's biggest letdown. Whilst I don't hate Halo 5, it was kind of the death knell. It wasn't the thing that made me end up disliking Halo. But we'll get to that. We had 2 games in the middle. The Master Chief Collection, just kind of a very solid collection of the first 4 Halo games. Not including Reach. And you know what? Really, really worth it for a remastered Halo 2 Anniversary. They fixed all the problems I had with Halo 1 Anniversary. The cutscenes are infinitely better, especially that Gravemind one. He actually looks intimidating. I can do a Gravemind impression, but it's going to hurt my voice like hell. But we're going to give it a go. We're going to give it a go. I am a monument to all your sins. I love that character. He's speaking in, I believe it's iambic pentameter, which is 7 syllables followed by 7 syllables. Could be wrong. Been a while since I looked into it. And then if you read one of the short stories where he's talking to Cortana, he stops doing it. He's like, oh, I just do it because I can, because I've absorbed a bucket load of the galaxy's greatest artists, and I find it fun. I think it's because the writer was lazy. Learn your iambic pentameter and write the Gravemind properly. Then we got a sequel to Halo Wars 2, which introduced a very cool faction. Halo have been kind of struggling over the last couple of games with who the new bad guy is. Because the unfortunate fact of the matter is when you blow up the Covenant, you've lost the key draw of Halo, which is shooting aliens in the face. Instead, all we had left was let's shoot fungal space zombies who suck and are only really fun to fight against when there's another faction in the room. Or let's fight weird cyborg robots who, whilst they don't hate them, certainly can't carry an entire game to themselves, to the point where we have to introduce a new rogue Covenant faction that we're just going to call the Covenant without any explanation. Or we're going to reintroduce those same Prometheans, completely ruin their combat style by changing up absolutely everything and introducing teleporting grunts. And then we're going to make Cortana the villain to, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to introduce the Banished. The Banished are fascinating. Massively fascinating. They're fascinating because, in the grand scheme of things, they've taken brutes, who I don't think brutes are a particularly fun enemy to fight. It's why I kind of rank Halo 2's campaign over this one. It's because brutes kind of suck. And made them actually interesting. You took a megalomaniac genius in the form of Atriox and made him a compelling antagonist. A guy who's got plans and ambitions beyond, I want to kill the elites, blah. Instead it's, yeah, no, that's dumb and unpragmatic, and we're not doing that. So, yeah. Gameplay-wise, it's a little StarCraft for me, and I'm not a huge StarCraft fan, which is a shame. It's a little less Halo Wars and a little more StarCraft, which, it was at a time where RTSs just weren't being made. Nowadays, we're getting quite a few of them, and more, yes, gimme. But yeah, that was the last Halo game I actually enjoyed. The death of Halo. For me. The death of Halo. I got this when it came out. I was given it for Christmas. And I get it out, and I put it in my wife's Xbox, and I find that the campaign isn't on the disc. The entire campaign. Instead, it's free-to-play garbage multiplayer, and I have to download the campaign off of the internet, which for game preservation is shit. That was the first massive warning sign for me. That was the point where I kind of wrote off Microsoft as a thing I'm going to collect for. I'm not interested in their new console. It can go suck an egg. Microsoft in general can go suck an egg, and that's just my feelings on it. I'm not into playing I'm not into renting games that can then be taken off a service that may or may not be around forever. Probably won't be. We're already seeing the issues of something like Netflix. Netflix is struggling hugely and hemorrhaging subscribers. If Game Pass starts doing that, they're going to discontinue it, and suddenly all those games that we've been renting go away. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the game that killed Halo for me. Where to begin? The story's terrible, because it feels like playing the first half of Halo 1, and that's it. Halo 1 builds up playing the Covenant. You fight the Covenant for half of the game. Then it introduces the Flood as a twist. This ends at the Flood point, because you're supposed to be finding out who these endless creatures are, which sounds a bit Destiny to me, but whatever. I'm willing to overlook it. throughout this entire time you've been fighting the Banished. Cool. Big fan of them from Halo Wars 2. But they're extremely spongy. They're extremely tanky. The boss fights are a miserable experience because you're forced to rely on the grappling hook. And don't get me wrong, the grappling hook is very cool to use, but yeah. We waited years for this game and it was a disappointment on every level for me. Its multiplayer was barren and boring. It's free to play, which, fuck off. I want free to play in a Halo game. I want to play Halo. I want the complete fucking package, you know? The amount of shit this came with was insignificant in comparison to this. This came out 13 years ago, and it's got more content in it than this fucking thing. It's ridiculous. So many broken promises as well. Oh yeah, you know, it'll totally have local split screen after Halo 5 didn't bloody have it. Meaning you can't play it locally with your wife or whoever you may want to play it with. Instead you have to pay for another Xbox and pay for online and pay for another copy of the fucking game. Fuck off. No, go away. And I know this isn't a problem for people who like playing online or have a PC. Good for you. But if you're like me, who grew up on Halo expecting these features to be in there, and for them to then be promised with Halo fucking Infinite, it's disgusting. It is. It is. And I strictly bought this again, so I could talk about it on here. And whilst I will be keeping it, it will just be a coaster. For me, that's all it is a coaster. And that's the real issue I have with Halo nowadays, is this series used to consume my life. It used to be what I played all the time. I would look forward to every single release, and I would beat every Halo game in a day. It took me 2 weeks, and it was the most boring, repetitive, irritating, bullet spongy load of shit I have ever played. Halo 2 had better boss fights. The only decent one was when you're fighting that semi-invisible elite who then despawns while running away and spawns somewhere else so they can be cheap. And even that's really gimmicky. And even then you're forced to go, oh yeah, you know, I have to actually switch to one of the other bits of equipment because the only one you're ever going to use is the fucking grappling hook. No decent characters. Escarum was okay, but he was a little too handsome Jack for my liking, in that he's constantly in your face, being like, I'm an evil bastard. I want an honourable death because I'm dying of probably lung cancer, judging by his voice. And the Cortana replacement and the big twist that it's supposed to... Oh, it's a copy of Cortana created so that they could lock out Cortana after they made her too powerful in the last game. So that they can then retcon the entire last game because nobody fucking liked it. Do you know what the real kicker was? I read halfway through development, they went, oh, you know, the Banished from this game. A lot of people really like them, which made them the antagonists of this one over the fucking established antagonists from the last game. It's been so poorly handled. And that's the kicker. Halo died for me the day I finished Halo Infinite. In fact, it died for me the day I got it. Which is a shame. I got rid of it probably the day I finished it. The day I finished it, I went, I don't want this in my house. I don't want this anywhere near me. I got it again one final time, so that A, I never buy the bloody game again, as I'm sure some of us have issues with. And so that I can use it as a coaster for spilling tea, because that's all it's worth now. That's all it's worth. It's an 18 quid coaster. But there is one plus side to all of this. I have all of the better Halo games. even the ones that not a lot of people like, even ones I will freely admit the story is absolutely atrocious and there's still some fun to be had. Halo Infinite is not a game to have fun in. It's a game to be miserable and go, God, I wish this was like Halo Reach in its multiplayer. Or God, I wish this was like Halo 2 in its single player. Or God, I wish this had a decent Forge. And I'm sure Forge is great in Halo Infinite, but I will never find out because I just simply do not care. So, that's it for this week, guys. I still love Halo. I still love Halo. And I think we all love Halo, if you're watching this. We all love it, and I think we'll miss it. I miss Bungie making decent games that aren't extraction shooters or Hotline to Garbage Town in the form of Destiny and its excessive monetization, excessive loot boxes, and its constant getting rid of old content and all the other stuff that just plagues its entire business model. And it's not a bastardization of a long-standing classic franchise in the form of Marathon. It's none of that. We've still got all the Halo games. We've still got the Marathon trilogy. We've still got these games that we can just go play. So, you know what? That's what I'm going to go do. I'm going to play Halo 2. I'm going to go and play Halo 2. I'm going to play ODST. I'm even going to play 5 again. Because it's worth it. But I think this one... This can hold my drink while I'm playing them. That'll be it, guys. Look forward to next week, where I'm probably going to do an Amiibo video. That one will be a little more light-hearted than my tragic tale of despair over Halo Infinite and the state of the Halo series. But at the same time, it won't be nearly an hour. It will not be nearly an hour long. But yeah. Thank you, guys. And that's me signing off.